I'm going to take just about 5 minutes to introduce iCivics, not the parts that you know, because I understand some of you do have some experience with iCivics and Drafting Board already, but a little bit of introduction on the field network about what you may not be aware, some work we've done over the last year to give you more field presence. And for a general description, I think most of you know that iCivics is a suite of video games and accompanying lesson plans, well over a semester's worth of content now, which is designed to teach kids civics in a fun way that is also easy for the teacher to implement and provided at no cost. None of that has changed since it was launched as Our Courts back in 2008, and then when it's launched as iCivics, that is still the goal and always will be. And then to help support these materials, what you may not be as familiar with is our field network. We have ambassadors, state coordinators, and now recently relaunched Teachers Council. And just, I know Stephen said that I should probably give a shout out to this. Before I continue, I should let you know this handy software does let us know if you're paying attention or not, which I have been caught at in meetings, so I thought I'd give you a heads up on that. There's no punitive damage there. All right, I'm moving to slide 2. If it's been a while since you've been to iCivics.org, you may not be aware that we redesigned the site last fall. We have some new curriculum units. So here's the new homepage. It shows that we've reorganized it into a Play and a Teach Hub. And then when you click on the Teach Hub, this is what you'll see. And so there's so much here, I can't even begin to start. I just encourage you, if you haven't been on in a while, to get back on, learn, play around with the new registration process and how we've organized things. There are some units on the economy, which have been really helpful to economics and math teachers even. So take a look around that. All right, so for the field, I've included this map, just to make the point that iCivics is, of course, being used in all 50 states, and to also show you where I'm targeting our efforts. So you'll see in the green, in the dark green, Florida is listed on there, and it is by far our biggest state for usage, hands down. The red states are where we're going to be targeting our usage because they are lower usage states, but they've got big populations. And so we always come to Florida when we need to try things out or learn something. And some of you may have been participants in the original Drafting Board pilot. Texas isn't even close to Florida, neither is New York or anything else. So thank you, and particularly to Stephen and the Florida Joint Center for what you guys have done in making that possible. And as all of you know, the Sandra Day O'Connor Act probably helped just a little bit. It needs no explanation to you except to tell you it's still the only assessed civics course that's out there. So we're really excited to see how that's been implemented. So the first group of people designed to help you are the ambassadors. You probably won't interact with these folks too often in a direct manner, but these are the network of high-profile advocates that can promote iCivics and provide state-level fundraising support. Former Justice Harry Anstead has been a huge help to us in Florida. Does all kinds of activities. You've probably seen him work with Annette Boyd-Pitts a lot if you're familiar with their state coordinator. But just some other types of activities they do. The Chief Justice of South Carolina, Jean Toll, she actually has made it possible for the state to provide funding for a full-time iCivics employee. They have full-time paid iCivics teachers in that state. They do iCivics summer camps. It's really crazy what they've made possible there. So each state has at least one, and most have more than one. So I just want to give you an idea that these people are out there. They're listed on our site, and you can work with them. They're really good if you ever need a letter of commendation for your file, or you want to do something higher profile in your area for iCivics. Next, the most important contact for you to have, of course, is you're going to be your state coordinator. If you've worked with her before, you know how good she is. You really did hit the state coordinator lottery, and Annette Boyd-Pitts, and she works out of the Florida Law-Related Education Association. I've got her website and email up on here, and I would definitely take her email down if you're not used to working with her. But if you want any kind of professional development on iCivics or have questions on any other civic education program that's available in the state, We the People, Project Citizen, she's the person to go to, and she will personally visit your classroom and do whatever you need. So she's a great resource. And then finally, newer addition to our website is the Teachers Council, and Emma Humphreys is on here. She is the lead Teachers Council representative for the country and also one of the original members from Florida. There are two other members from Florida, Sergio Nieves with Miami and Suzanne Ensman, who's at a community college. So you've got 3 National Teachers Council members from Florida on this council, And this is where they're listed on our site. So you can go and contact any of these people at any time, check out their bios. They're designed to be your mentors. For the last year, I traveled the state and heard a lot from teachers that while they understood what it meant to be a We the People teacher or a Project Citizen teacher or a teaching history teacher, what it meant to be an iCivics teacher was not well defined, and they didn't know who to talk to if they wanted to be collaborative with their colleagues. And so we have built this council specifically to address some of those issues. Any of them are willing to be contacted. There are 25. This is just a screenshot of the website, and we've got 3 in Florida there. So please do use that resource. This comes up every 20 seconds, sorry. All right. So that's them being launched back in July. They met with the justice and decided that the council would focus on 2 areas, support and visibility. And the support part is something that we also heard from teachers. You know, iCivics launched the website, and the games were great, and they were heavily scaffolded, so they didn't need a lot of training. But now we've grown 600% in the last year alone, and we've gone from 2,000 teachers in 2011 to over 55,000 just 3 years later. And those teachers do need support. We need to come up with professional development plans and how-to videos for the games. There's just too much content to not provide professional development anymore. So the council is going to be working on that, and you can contact us anytime if you want help in your classroom. And also visibility. They're there to help give you the face of iCivics and really talk to your community and your fellow colleagues about it. Just a little bit on their structure, and then I'm almost done. The council's been divided into these 3 areas: communications, support, and the classroom. They're going to have closed chat groups amongst themselves, but you're also going to be seeing a lot from them on Facebook and Twitter. So if you're not interacting with iCivics in those ways yet, I strongly encourage you to do so. They have a rotating teacher blog that we post to our site and Facebook, where they talk about issues that teachers are having with iCivics in the classroom. Is there a certain lesson plan you're struggling with, or certain iCivics hacks that are helpful to students in the classroom? All of that stuff is going to be talked about and posted about on a really regular basis now. And they'll also host national Twitter parties. We just did one not too long ago with SS Chat, where they talk to teachers about problems that social studies teachers or even language arts or civics are having in the classroom. This council is going to be out there a lot to help you, so please do connect with us on social media. And then just a final quick note, so you can take this down before I introduce Allison, is that you do have this network of support that we built for you, and in Florida you have a particularly strong one. So contact me at any time. Emma, the general support. One note I'll say on here is if you're having any kind of technical issues with iCivics or drafting board, email this address because it captures whatever browser and software you're using. That's a really good way for our team in Washington, D.C. to figure out how to solve the problem. And Annette is there for you pretty much 24 hours a day. So with that being said, I want to turn it over to Allison for the update on Drafting Board 2.0, which, just as you know, it's a 3-day classroom intervention teaching argumentative persuasive writing. And you may not know that after controlling for a number of factors, that students in your state were found to be 38% more likely to get a perfect score on their writing exam. And you're getting a training from the lady who designed it. She's one of iCivics' original employees, pretty much the author of all of our famous lesson plans that teachers love so much, former teacher herself and lawyer, as well as, and I don't know if she wants me to say this, but I'm going to, successful romance writer. So you'll be in very good hands with Allison. And so, Stephen, you can go ahead and take the screen whenever I'm finished, unless you want to just wrap it around at the end. If people have questions specifically on outreach, I'll be here for the whole time.
Thank you, Erin, for that good overview of iCivics. And, of course, we here at the Florida Joint Center for Citizenship are also big fans and heavy users of iCivics, so we're more than happy to talk with folks about iCivics as well, because we have some good work and good connections with them. And the wonderful Emma Humphreys, of course, is somebody we work with very closely. So now Allison's going to talk about civics and literacy and Drafting Board 2.0 and how the tool can really serve you as you work to help kids with these ELA standards as well as civic standards, both here in Florida and across the nation. So, Allison, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. I'm Allison Atwater. I'm the Senior Curriculum Developer at iCivics. I have done a lot of work on drafting boards, so I'm really happy to be able to talk to you about it today. if you could find the little button where you raise your hand, and if you have already ever used Drafting Board before, would you raise your hand so that I can see how many people we've had? Great, so a few and some who haven't. Drafting Board has been around for a little while, but it's part of a direction that we're heading at iCivics to try to blend civics resources and literacy tools. We're really excited about the possibilities for using civics content to help teachers teach and support literacy. So whether you are an ELA teacher and your main focus is actually teaching literacy skills, or you're a social studies teacher and your main function is to teach social studies, but you're also expected to support literacy skills, Drafting Board can be a helpful resource. In Drafting Board, you find engaging civics content on 7 topics that we have right now. We're working on some more, in a tool that teaches argumentative writing. So in the process of taking a deeper look at one of these civics topics, students are also reading for evidence. They're using evidence to support claims. They're using evidence in writing. They're getting practice on how to paraphrase, how to use transitions. They're seeing how an essay should be organized. All these different skills that go into writing an argumentative essay. We're going to jump right in and take a look at Drafting Board itself. Drafting Board got a complete overhaul last year, so if you have not used Drafting Board since the end of the last school year, you're going to see a lot of changes. One thing that has not changed is the module structure. In Drafting Board, students work through 6 modules: the issue analyzer, the claim creator, the paragraph constructor, the critic crusher, the introduction introducer, and the conclusion crafter. We're going to whiz through a screencast of each module as though you were playing it yourself so that you can really see what Drafting Board does from start to finish, but in a much more condensed time frame. And after we look at each module, there will be a little quick and easy quiz question for you to answer about the module. If you have any questions during the screencast, go ahead and type them in to the question window or hang on to them, and I will answer them as soon as the screencast is done. I'm going to walk you through this first screencast that will show you the first module in Drafting Board, which is the issue analyzer. The issue analyzer is designed as a fictional newspaper article that introduces you to the controversy you'll be writing about. The first thing you see is this opening paragraph of the article. Next, you work through a series of incomplete story pieces to finish the newspaper story. In the main work area, you'll see a story piece with a blank space. On the right, you'll see the evidence panel. The evidence panel will be there throughout Drafting Board, but it will contain different amounts of evidence depending on your task. For each story piece, you will have access to 3 pieces of evidence. One of those pieces of evidence contains the correct information to complete the blank space in the story piece. Expanding the evidence automatically completes the story piece with information from the evidence. You must decide which piece of evidence correctly completes the story piece. As you work through the story, you'll encounter evidence and points of view from both sides of the issue. This gives you a basis for understanding the issue and for choosing a side to support later. A progress bar at the bottom of the screen shows you how far you've progressed through the story. When you finish the story, Drafting Board compiles all the pieces together. Any story pieces you completed incorrectly will be highlighted red. Before you can move on, you must go back and find the correct evidence. Once you've completed the entire story, Drafting Board will ask you to choose a side. The side that you choose is the side you'll argue for in your essay. You then explain why you chose that side, and that is the end of the issue analyzer. So we're going to do a quick little poll quiz here. And you should be able to see on your screen a question, and the question is, which of these is not something students do in the issue analyzer? So go ahead and answer the question. Again, answering the question, it looks like about a third of you, half of you. Another few seconds. If you haven't yet voted, please choose your answer. Almost got everyone. Now I'm going to go ahead and close this in the interest of moving on. And then we can see the answer. You should be able to see the results. Now, surprisingly, actually, the third one, using evidence to support a claim, is the one thing that students don't do in the issue analyzer. They are previewing the evidence as they go through. They're learning about both sides of the issue. They end up choosing a side, but they're not actually using the evidence for anything in this particular activity. And then we are going to now we're going to look at the next module, which is called the claim creator. So in this second module, the claim creator, we're going to walk through. In the claim creator, you start by choosing 3 reasons to support your claim. In Drafting Board, you don't develop your own reasons, but instead you choose from 4 pre-written reasons. This is because Drafting Board could not function without a predetermined number of possibilities. You choose 3 reasons by liking them, and then you favorite the reason you think is strongest. Drafting Board will then ask you to explain why you think your favorite reason is the strongest. In the main part of the claim creator, you'll see your 3 reasons and 2 boxes next to each reason. You also see that the evidence panel is full of evidence. Your job now is to find 2 pieces of evidence that support each reason. When you open a piece of evidence, which we'll do here in a second, you'll see that all of the boxes change to plus signs. You read the evidence, and if you think it matches one of your reasons, click one of the plus signs next to the reason. And when you do that, Drafting Board asks if your evidence makes sense as support for the reason you're trying to match it with. If you click "This makes sense," you'll see that the piece of evidence has been added right next to your reason. So you continue through the evidence this way, reading the evidence and matching it to your reasons. When you're finished, Drafting Board will show you if you've made any mistakes. Now, it may be possible to think of ways that a piece of evidence could support more than one reason, but in order for Drafting Board to work, there have to be right and wrong answers. So hovering over a red incorrect box will bring up a hint for finding correct evidence. You then remove the wrong pieces of evidence by clicking the little remove button, and you go back and you find another piece of evidence. Once you've correctly matched all of the evidence, then that's it for the claim creator. We're going to move now to our first question about the claim creator, our only question about the claim creator, in fact. So, similar to the last one, which of these is not a support found in the claim creator? The claim creator has several ways that it supports students. Little helps along the way. See how closely you were paying attention? Go ahead and vote. See if you can remember which one was not part of the claim creator, if any. Almost half of you have finished voting. And don't worry, I can't see who marked what. I can only see how many have voted. All right, almost everyone. Let me go ahead and close that and share the results. So yeah, the correct answer was the last one. The claim creator has all of these. The does this make sense pop-up comes up when you go to match a piece of evidence with a reason to sort of get you to pause and think, is this really right? Do I need to go back? It has hints for finding the correct evidence at the very end if you made a mistake. It marks your correct evidence. So these are all things that if you ever used the first draft version of Drafting Board were not there, that we've now added to try to build in as much support as possible to both help students who are struggling, but also to slow down those who are rushing through. In this screencast, we'll walk through the third module of Drafting Board, the paragraph constructor. In Drafting Board, you begin the essay by writing the 3 body paragraphs. The paragraph constructor supports you through the process of writing each body paragraph 1 paragraph at a time. The first thing you'll do with each paragraph is arrange your ideas. You click the arrows to set the order in which you'd like to discuss your evidence. You make sure to keep the topic sentence at the top or it won't be happy. Drafting Board offers 3 levels of scaffolding support for writing the body paragraphs. In this walkthrough, we are going to see one example of each level. Right now, you're looking at the highest level of support. The paragraph is pre-written except for 2 blank spaces. The topic sentence should look familiar. It is the reason that you favored it in the claim creator. Hang on, because I think it's not going. Okay. In the evidence panel, you see there are only 2 pieces of evidence. These are the pieces of evidence that you matched to this reason in the claim creator. At this level of support, when you open the evidence, you see that 3 sentences are highlighted. These sentences are clickable. And when you click a sentence, Drafting Board auto-completes the space in the paragraph. We call this the autofill level of support. You determine whether the autocomplete response makes sense. Only 1 sentence will complete the paragraph correctly. You'll also notice that clicking a highlighted sentence adds that sentence to your My Notes list on the left side of the screen. This feature exists on all of the different scaffolding levels that we'll look at. So you go through and you complete both of the blank spaces using both of the pieces of evidence. And after you do that, you'll have the opportunity to add transitions to your paragraph. You'll see a list of transition choices on the left. You click or hover over a transition to see its definition and an example of how to use it in a sentence. When you're ready, type your transitions into the boxes. If you don't want to use a transition, just click the red X. Next, you can freely edit your paragraph. The auto-completed answers appear in blue. The transitions that you typed yourself appear in orange. Throughout Drafting Board, all of your own writing will appear in orange text, so you can easily distinguish it from Drafting Board's text. So you go through the paragraph constructor 3 times. Now you're looking at the middle level of scaffolding. The paragraph is pre-written, but this time it contains several blank areas that you must complete in your own words. You must read the evidence and find the information that will help you complete the paragraph correctly. We call this the paraphrase level because you need to paraphrase the ideas in the evidence in order to complete the sentence. This time when you open a piece of evidence, you see that every sentence is highlighted and clickable. To remember which sentences contain the information you want to use, you can click them and add them to your My Notes column on the left of the work area. You complete the paragraph by typing into the boxes. And you do this for both pieces of evidence. And you'll notice there that there is hover over definition. So the glossary words are highlighted in pink, and if you hover over them or click them, the definition just pops right up rather than have a separate glossary to go to. So you still add transitions. You still edit. And you can change or type anything there, even something Drafting Board wrote. And on this level, Drafting Board will ask you to evaluate your work. You fill out a short rubric to rate yourself on detail, using your own words, and whether your paragraph makes sense. Now we're looking at the lowest level of scaffolding. Only the topic sentence is pre-written. So you have to study the evidence and write the rest of the paragraph completely on your own. We're calling this the DIY level. Use information from both pieces of the evidence to write your paragraph. Again, almost all sentences in the evidence are clickable and can be added to your notes on the left. This time, it's up to you to decide where to place any transitions. You just click the spot and type. And like before, the last step is to evaluate your work. Now, which level of scaffolding support you experience depends on the challenge mode you select at the very beginning of Drafting Board. When Drafting Board first begins, you see a screen that looks like this. The person using Drafting Board, the student, must select a level in order for Drafting Board to start. So we'll just go through. Default gives you one paragraph of each type like we just saw. First autofill, then paraphrase, then DIY, just like the example. In level 1, there's one autofill paragraph and 2 paraphrase paragraphs. On level 2, all 3 paragraphs are at the middle paraphrase level of support. So there are no DIY paragraphs on level 1 or level 2. Level 3 gives you 2 paraphrase paragraphs and 1 DIY paragraph. You can see where this is going. Level 4 is a little more challenging. It has 1 paraphrase and 2 DIY paragraphs. And gold star for everyone who guesses that level 5, all 3 paragraphs are DIY. Before starting a class with Drafting Board, teachers should decide which level they're going to assign to the class. You'd also want to consider whether individual students should be assigned a more or less challenging mode. Teachers can find a matrix with this information in the classroom materials that come with each Drafting Board topic, and also in the new Drafting Board Teaching Guide and Tips document. Both of those can be found on the iCivics website with each Drafting Board topic. All right, that is the paragraph constructor, and it is time for our next poll. So you should see it now. We have 2 questions that I'm going to ask about the paragraph constructor, and this is the first one. Go ahead and see which one you think the answer is. So as a teacher, what should you do before your class starts Drafting Board? Okay, I've had almost everyone finish voting. Excellent. Okay, so there's 2 correct answers here. Deciding on a challenge mode to assign the class is probably easiest if you have a sense of what works for most of your students. Just say, to the whole class, pick level, whatever. But the third answer, there may be some students that need different accommodations. So you might want to privately walk around and whisper over somebody's shoulder, you know, I'd like you to choose level 2 or something like that. All right. Next question. I take that back. It's missing. So we had one question, and now we're going to move on to the next module here. We're going to be looking at the fourth module inside Drafting Board, which is the Critic Crusher. In the Critic Crusher, you use one of your own reasons and its evidence to counter one of the other side's reasons. The Critic Crusher teaches a counter-argument format that you can reproduce even outside of Drafting Board. You start by sorting through a quick jumble to identify the other side's main claim. Then you explain why someone might make that claim, those crazy people on the other side. Next, you see two of the other side's reasons, and you choose one to crush. You begin by piecing together a practice paragraph. For this, Drafting Board asks you to complete a series of matching and multiple choice activities. By working through the practice paragraph, you learn the structure for the counter-argument paragraph. The directions at the top of each screen help you understand the purpose of each sentence in the paragraph. Also on each screen, you see the other side's claim and the other side's reason that you're crushing, as well as your own claim and reason. You also have access to two pieces of evidence. One is a piece of evidence that supports your reason. The other is a piece of evidence that supports the other side's reason. So you'll need to open and read the evidence in order to understand the counter-argument. After the practice paragraph, you complete a second paragraph. This is the paragraph that's actually included in your essay. The second time through, you're crushing the same reason, but you counter it with different evidence from your own side. You follow the same paragraph structure, but this time you're completing fill-in-the-blank sentences. Again, you need to open and read the evidence in order to get the information that you need to complete the sentences correctly. As with the paragraph constructor, you have the chance to freely edit the Critic Crusher paragraphs. But because of the structured nature of the Critic Crusher, there is not an Add Transition screen in this module. And when you finish that second paragraph, you're done with the Critic Crusher. And we have a quick question about the Critic Crusher, which you should now see on your screen. What is the main goal of the Critic Crusher? Go ahead and vote after you've looked at the choices. Look carefully at that third answer. Okay, almost everyone has had a chance to, and everyone has now voted. Now I can see why that third answer is a little tricky. The word each that in there is the flag. The students are countering just one argument that the other side might make. The main general goal of the Critic Crusher is that second answer, just introducing the concept of counter-argument and what it might sound like. Obviously the activities in there are pretty heavily scaffolded. By working through that just a couple times, it's doubtful that they'd be able to just run off and write a brilliant counter-argument paragraph on their own with no help, but it gets them thinking about it. The fact that there is such a thing, what it might sound like, what does it look like when you are addressing someone else's point of view with evidence from your own side. And teachers are going to have different ways that they want students to actually formulate a counter-argument. We're aware of that. Drafting Board shows one way to formulate it. The main thing is just to show students that what it means to address another side's point of view, and that you need to use evidence in order to address it credibly. All right, last but not least, this final screencast is going to walk us through the last two modules inside Drafting Board, the Introduction Introducer and the Conclusion Crafter. A lot of alliteration going on here. The Introduction Introducer shows you how to construct an introductory paragraph that pulls the reader into the essay. A quick categorizing activity shows you a variety of attention-grabbing ways to hook the reader at the beginning of an essay. You see 5 different hooks. Use the drop-down menus to match each hook to the category that most accurately describes it. Next, you see each hook matched to a bridge sentence. The bridge just transitions the hook into the rest of the paragraph. So you choose the hook and bridge pair that you want to use in your essay. Now you see that Drafting Board has actually completed the rest of the paragraph for you by adding your 3 reasons and your claim. You've finished the paragraph by adding transitions and making any edits you'd like. Now you progress to the last module, which is the Conclusion Crafter. But before we get there, after every module in Drafting Board, not just this one, you'll see a progress screen that shows you where you are in the Drafting Board process. The thermometer on the left shows your progress through the modules as they appear in Drafting Board. The boxes on the right show the elements of the essay in the order that they actually appear in the essay. You see that the boxes are colored in as you complete each element. Here you see the only part that's left is the Conclusion Crafter. The View Your Essay button lets you see and edit your work. You can click the Edit Text button to make any changes. Now we're on to the Conclusion Crafter. The Conclusion Crafter shows you how to write an effective concluding paragraph, including how to say what you said before, but in a different way. The Conclusion Crafter supports you in learning to restate your claim and reasons in a new way. The first task in the Conclusion Crafter is to restate your claim. Drafting Board helps you by giving you 4 fill-in-the-blank sentences to choose from. None of these sentences are wrong. They are just 4 different ways of saying the same thing. You choose the one you like best, then look at your original claim to figure out how to complete the blanks in a way that makes sense. Next, you will restate each of your 3 reasons. But like the paragraph constructor, the Conclusion Crafter also has 3 possible levels of scaffolding support for helping you restate your reasons. So in this walkthrough, we're going to see one example of each level. Right now, you're looking at the highest level of scaffolding support for restating a reason. Here, there are 4 complete choices. None of these choices is wrong. They're just 4 different ways of saying the same reason. You choose the one you like best. This level corresponds to the autofill support level in the paragraph constructor. This is the middle level of scaffolding support. You choose from 4 fill-in-the-blank sentences, just like you did when you restated your claim. None are wrong. They're just modeling different ways of restating. Choose one of the sentences and complete it using your original reason as a guide. This level corresponds to the paraphrase support level in the paragraph constructor. Now you're looking at the lowest level of scaffolding support. Here you restate your reason completely on your own just by typing directly into the paragraph. Your original reason is above. This corresponds to the DIY support level in the paragraph constructor. After you've restated your claim and reasons, you'll see a categorizing activity very similar to the one at the start of the Introduction Introducer. Here, you'll categorize 5 possible clinchers to end your essay. Just like in the Introduction Introducer activity, use the drop-down menus to categorize the clinchers. Then, choose the clincher you want to use in your essay. After you've constructed the paragraph, you'll add transitions and edit the paragraph. Now, the combination of autofill, paraphrase, and DIY levels you experience in the conclusion crafter is the same as the combination you get in the paragraph constructor. So, for example, if you had one autofill, one paraphrase, and one DIY paragraph in the paragraph constructor, then in the conclusion crafter, you'll restate one of your reasons using autofill, one using paraphrase method, and you'll write one on your own. Remember that the combination of support levels you experience is determined by the challenge mode you select at the very beginning of Drafting Board. The conclusion crafter is the last module in Drafting Board, but before Drafting Board ends, you'll have one last chance to review and edit your entire essay. Use the scroll bar to see your essay from start to finish. Click the Edit Text button to make any changes. That's it. When you're finished, you'll be prompted to print your essay or even redo Drafting Board. You can also just exit. Don't worry, you won't lose your essay if you don't print it now, because when teachers assign a Drafting Board topic using their My iCivics account, student essays are saved so that teachers can access them through their teacher accounts. All right, we now have one last question. Actually, two last questions. So here's the first of the last two. You should be able to see it. What do the introduction introducer and the conclusion crafter have in common? You might want to take another look at those answers. Nobody has yet picked the correct answer. I don't know on the participant end if you're able to go back. We've got almost everyone. Another couple seconds, give you a chance. And I'm going to go ahead and close it now. And this time I'm not going to share the answer. The correct answer was the first one, the categorizing activity. There, with the drop-down menus in the introduction introducer, you're categorizing types of hook sentences. In the conclusion crafter, you're categorizing types of clinchers. We did this to give students, and to model for them different ways that you can do an effective introduction, for example, or an effective conclusion. And we made up some different categories. So it gives them just a little practice of seeing some different ways to kind of do the same thing. They do not have identical paragraph structure. They're a little bit reversed paragraph structure, and only the introduction introducer has that bridge sentence. And I'm going to give you one more poll question here. What do the conclusion crafter and the paragraph constructor have in common? It's one of the very last things we talked about. A couple seconds to vote. All right, everyone has voted. And that third answer is the correct one, multiple scaffolding levels determined by the challenge mode. So the challenge mode that they select at the beginning determines the type of support students get both in the paragraph constructor for those body paragraphs and in the conclusion crafter for help learning how to restate your reasons. I think being able to say what you said before but say it in a different way is one of those things that is difficult even for adults, one of those writing skills. So we tried to build in some help for students there. Now, we worked completely through Drafting Board, and we just want to zero in on a few of the features that we saw. First, I really cannot overstate the importance of the challenge mode and how critical it is to plan ahead for this. As you could see, if a student's faced with the wrong challenge mode, It could make drafting board either way too easy or way too difficult. Also, it's the very, very first thing that they see when they start drafting board, so you want to be sure they know what to click when they get there, so you're not running around the lab trying to tell people or scurrying to try to figure out what the different modes are. You really want to plan for that in advance. This is the challenge mode matrix that you'll find in the classroom materials that come with each topic and also in the teaching guide. It shows you exactly what configuration of support each level has. So as we saw, it goes from lots of help to a total write-it-yourself essay. So you can use this matrix to help you assign the most appropriate challenge mode to your students. I also wanted to point out the built-in glossary. I mentioned it, I think, toward the beginning. Students can hover over or click on a pink word to see its definition. So it's easy, it's right there. It's not something where they have to go to a separate glossary, which we all know they would never do. Audio support. Did not mention this in the walkthrough, but drafting board includes an audio read-aloud feature for students who need it. You'll find that almost all of the static text has the audio playback feature. Unfortunately, it cannot be disabled, so if you don't want most of your class using it, you would need to manage that as an expectation. But the audio is there for students who do need that extra support. The Your Essay So Far button lets students see the progress of their essay as they build it. This is part of one thing that we built in to try to mimic the authentic writing process as much as we could. One thing you do when you're writing on your own is you can also go back and always be looking at your work that you've already done. So when they click this button, they see the parts of the essay they've already completed alongside an outline of the essay. They see their progress through drafting board along the top, and they can click the Edit Text button to make changes to what they've done. And I just want to note that this does not update in the middle of a module. It only updates after each module. And I see I have a question about whether there's a Spanish version. I wish we had one. Right now we do not. We only have an English version. Another feature is the visible student text. This was an issue with the first version of drafting board. If you use that, you may remember. Now you'll see that all student-generated text is in this orangey color. It lets you as the teacher easily glance over students' shoulders and spot the work that they've written on their own. And obviously it lets students easily see their own work as well. We saw in the walkthrough how drafting board helps students add transitions to a paragraph. You can see here again that there's a built-in list for them to choose from, and there's a definition and example for each one. Students can actually type any transition they want into the boxes, so they're not limited to this list, but it's there for students who need it. Here's another look at that between module screen, which is the progress page students see after each module. There's that thermometer on the left that shows the modules in the order they are in drafting board. You've got the color blocks on the right, and they fill in the order that they complete them. So the students will see that they're actually doing the body before they write the introduction, for example. The View Your Essay button takes them to that same screen as the Your Essay So Far button, where they can view and edit. Redo, be careful, it will make you redo the whole module. So if you want to go back and redo your entire module, you can. Finally, I'd like to point out the graphic organizers that are at the beginning of each module. These show basic concepts of writing an argumentative essay, which are really the big takeaways that are completely transferable to argumentative writing that takes place outside of drafting board. So for that reason, we created an interactive PowerPoint quiz built around the graphic organizers, which I'll talk more about in a few minutes. We've designed a whole set of supplemental materials that can help you make the best use of the class time that you spend with drafting board. We really try to stress that drafting board is not a game, and it's not the kind of tool where you can just sit students in front of the computer and walk away. It's important to be there monitoring and facilitating as the students are walking through. The first thing we have to help you is a set of classroom materials for each topic, and this is where you'll find these materials on the website. Although please note that you must be logged in order to access the teacher files. So the classroom materials include a variety of supports and activities. There's the challenge mode matrix we already talked about. There are 2 different printable pre-writing activity options for you. There's a printable glossary if you want one, and also a printable version of the evidence. So if you have students that really could benefit from a hard copy, that's available. There's a set of guiding questions to help you direct students to the right evidence while they're working on the claim creator. We highly recommend that if you use nothing else, do print and distribute the progress tracker. This is a worksheet that students fill out as they're working through Drafting Board that helps them keep track of what they've done and what their objectives are, and it also gives you something else to collect besides just the essay, either at the end of each session with Drafting Board or at the end of the whole thing. Finally, there is an available half-page peer editing worksheet. We have a brand new teaching guide. It's our teaching guide and tips. You'll find this on the website with each Drafting Board topic, but there's only one teaching guide. It's the same for all topics. We just wanted to make it easy to find, so we put it everywhere. The teaching guide includes some overview information that you'll already know about because of this webinar, but it also includes a getting started guide with all the things you should do before starting a class with Drafting Board. There are tips for what to look for while you're circulating as students work through each module. So that's probably, having been through this webinar, the thing that is going to be the most valuable here. There's a guide to the teacher report data that we'll talk about in just a second, and there are instructions for how to use the new concept activity PowerPoint, which we are now going to talk about. The concept activity PowerPoint is the 3rd teacher file that you'll see on each Drafting Board page. It reinforces the concepts of argumentative writing. It's the same for each topic. Again, we just wanted to make it easy to find, so we put it on every page. The concept activity gives you full slide versions of each graphic organizer that you can teach or review off of, followed by some quiz questions about the concept that the graphic organizer is teaching. This is an active participation type of quiz designed for the whole class to answer as a chorus. If you've used other iCivics PowerPoints or lesson plans, you're familiar with this type of activity. Each quiz question features an iCivics character making a statement about argumentative writing. The class decides whether the statement is cool or not cool. And the star there will appear when you click. Along with the star, there's an explanation at the bottom, and I've got a couple of real live slides from that PowerPoint. So you would say this aloud to the class would answer cool or not cool, you hit the answer, talk about it for a second. Another example here. So that is what it goes. So there's the full slide of the graphic organizer, followed by 2, 3, 4 of these, then the next graphic organizer. So it's a way to reinforce these things that are not Drafting Board specific that you want students to be able to remember long after they have finished Drafting Board. Finally, we do have the product overview. By now, it's not going to tell you anything you don't already know, but it is there if you need it. The last thing we're going to look at is the data that Drafting Board generates for you to use as the teacher. The easiest way to access this data is to just click View Report on the topic page, although if you're familiar with the back end of iCivics, your My iCivics account, and you're comfortable with that, you can access it from there too. But we wanted to make it super easy, straight from the topic page. This will take you to the main report page, which looks like this. In the upper left corner, there's a drop-down menu where you can choose the class you want to see. As your students are working on Drafting Board, there are progress circles that will color in to show you how far they've gotten. You'll also see how much time they've spent and what challenge mode they're using. On the right, the View Data and View Essay buttons let you see individual data for each student. The View Data button shows you how the student performed in the evidence matching activities in the Issue Analyzer and the claim creator. Clicking this button brings a pop-up window with a little table in it. So for each activity, you can see how many pieces of evidence the student matched correctly on the very first try, and how many incorrect evidence matches the student made. So together, this data shows you how much the students struggled with the evidence matching activities. I'd like to point out that this was not designed to give you a number to use as a grade, although I suppose maybe you could come up with some sort of mathematical formula to do something with that. But it's designed to either show you how much a student struggled, or if you already know a student reads well enough that they shouldn't have too much trouble, it could be helpful letting you know if they just race through making a bunch of guesses without caring. The other button is the View Essay button. It is pretty self-explanatory. When you click this button, the student's essay pops up. Here you'll see the student's own writing in blue font this time, and you have the opportunity to download and print the essay. Now you may prefer to just download or print all the student data or all the essays at once, and you can do that too. The buttons in the upper right corner will download all of the evidence matching data into one spreadsheet for your whole class, or download all the essays from your class into one Word document, which you could then print. All right, at this point we are going to wrap up with a mini quiz about Drafting Board, and then you'll have a final chance to ask any questions. So what I'm going to have you do, there's going to be true and false statements, but since we can't be doing true and false, please raise your hand if you think it's true, and do not raise your hand if you think it's false. So go take a second and relocate that hand raising button, and I'm able to see you guys, and I can see whose hand is raised. And so we will begin. Drafting Board is, these are all going to start with Drafting Board is a tool to help teach essay structure and format. If it's true, raise your hand. If it's false, do not raise your hand. Great, I'm seeing pretty much everyone's hands raised, and that is absolutely true. That is what this is for. Number 2, Drafting Board is a replacement for teaching about argumentative writing. So if it's true, raise your hand. If it's false, do not raise your hand. Would you use Drafting Board instead of ever teaching about argumentative writing? And I am not seeing hands in the air because, no, this would be a tool to help you teach, but it can't replace the actual teaching. Number 3, Drafting Board is a game, true or false? If it's true, raise your hand. If it's false, do not raise your hand. And I am not seeing any hands in the air, which is good, because Drafting Board is not a game. It's a writing tool. And unlike a game, it really does require teacher facilitation. Number 4, Drafting Board is a way to model what good arguments look and sound like. True or false? If it's true, please raise your hand. If it's false, do not raise your hand. I'm seeing most all hands raised, and that's exactly what the point of this is, to really sort of model for students as they're learning about argumentative writing, what that might look like. Great. Number 5, Drafting Board is a way to teach kids how to conduct good research, and I would emphasize conduct. Is it teaching them how to conduct any research? So is this true or false? If it's true, raise your hand. If it's false, do not raise your hand. And I'm seeing mostly hands not raised, which is right. The key word here is conduct. Drafting Board doesn't actually teach them how to conduct research, but you can use Drafting Board as a springboard to discuss the types of sources and evidence that could be used to support an argument. So you can use it that way. Drafting Board is a way to practice working with evidence and support. True or false? If it's true, please raise your hand. If it's false, do not raise your hand. A way to practice working with evidence and support. Seeing most hands raised. Excellent. That is true. So they're practicing all the way through. They've got that evidence there that's built in. It's forcing them to work with that and to use that to support their arguments. Number 7, and we've only got 10, drafting board is a way to bring parts of Common Core to social studies. True or false? Raise your hand if true, not if false. And I'm seeing most hands raised. That is another reason why we did this, because so many social studies teachers are needing to support literacy. So we've got topics that are comprehensive, sort of deeper dives into certain civics matters that teachers can use. If you're in social studies, you could use drafting board mainly for that, but also to help sort of support what they might be learning in their ELA classes. Number 8, drafting board is a replacement for writing essays independently. True or false? If it's true, raise your hand. If it's false, do not raise your hand. And I'm not seeing any hands in the air, which is great because obviously it can't replace it. And not only that, we don't want it to replace it. Drafting board is intended to help get them to a point where they can write better independent argumentative essays. 9, drafting board is a way to explore topics relevant to civics. True or false? I'm seeing some hands pop up. That is right. We have one drafting board topic in each of 7 of our iCivics units, and we are working toward a goal of having at least one drafting board topic in every iCivics unit, trying to get them as closely relevant to the standards-related content that we know you're all having to teach as we can. And last one, drafting board is a good way to keep kids busy while you grade papers. True or false? Raising your hand if it's true, not if it's false. And I'm not seeing any hands go up, so you were listening. That if you do this, you probably won't get good results. It's not that you couldn't do it and just put them in front of drafting board and come what may, but you just wouldn't get good results from the time that you put into drafting board, because they would probably, you know, obviously some would do their best, but it would be easy for them to just breeze through it. So make use of those supplemental materials, circulate while your students are working, and just try to generally be available to answer questions and make sure they're giving their best effort while they're working. And that brings us to the end. You've got my email address is right there. Please feel free to copy it down. And if you have any drafting board related questions, you can just bypass our support email and email me directly with them. If you have any questions about what we talked about now, I'm happy to answer them.
Doesn't look like there are any questions.
All right. Well, like I said, feel free to email me, or if you think of anything later, I'm very happy to answer any questions. PowerPoint for professional development. Yes, in fact, we have one available on the website right now. There's sort of a do-it-yourself PowerPoint that we have right now. It's got these the screencast walkthroughs that we saw today that are narrated, and it's pretty much what you saw today in a sort of do-it-yourself format. And we also have it available if anyone wants to use it to do their own training with others, that you can certainly have access to that, and we'll be happy to share it with you. We do have Aaron. If you're still, there's a question here about the data showing the increase in writing and reading scores. And I know we had a study about that, and I don't have the figures readily available in my head.
Well, perhaps, Brandy, if you shoot them an email, they can get that data for you.
Yeah, that would definitely work. I apologize. I know that we have one, and I don't know what the numbers are.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today for this webinar. And we look forward to working with you soon and continuing to do very similar webinars with our colleagues at iCivics. And of course, don't forget the Florida Joint Center for Citizenship is here for you as well with the resources that we have. This webinar will be posted and presented for you on our blog at floridacitizens.wordpress.com, and that will be done next week. On behalf of Allison Atwater, Aaron Lewis at iCivics, and myself here at the Florida Joint Center for Citizenship, thank you very much, and please have a wonderful weekend, and thank you for the work that you do in helping develop that next generation of citizens. Have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.